joining us today. Today we're hosting a very important conversation, navigating tariffs, minimizing disruption for your refrigerated equipment, and it's brought to you by our IFTA Elite member, PLM. PLM has been a great elite partner with IFTA for the past 20 years, and we want to thank them for all of their insight and partnership. Before the presentation, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping items. First, you'll notice that you're muted, but that doesn't mean that you have to wait to participate. Please feel free to use the chat to ask any of your questions, and we'll get to as many of them as possible. We are recording today's webinar, and it will be posted in the IFTA section on our website in the coming days. So let me go ahead and announce and introduce our panel today. With us is Don Durham, who is serving as the PLM Fleet. Serves at PLM Fleet, the nation's largest technology-driven fleet management company, dedicated exclusively to cold chain supply and specializing in leasing, renting, and maintaining refrigerator assets. Don is a VP of Supply Chain Solutions and oversees strategic customer-focused initiatives, fleet consulting, and refrigerator trailer solutions. Don is a seasoned and influential executive in cold chain logistics, blending over 30 years at PLM with deep expertise in compliance technology and customer-driven solutions. Among his many awards in 2024, Don was given the Lifetime Achievement Rock Star of Supply Chain Award by Food Logistics. That's quite a mouthful, Don. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Ken Varth, the President and Senior Analyst of ACT Research. Ken joined ACT in 1991, becoming partner of the firm in 2000, and the company's president in 2009. He oversees the commercial vehicle analyst and forecasting at ACT and continues as the company's principal heavy truck and trailer market analyst. Keith is an advisor to the commercial vehicle OEMs and suppliers, the investment community, industry associations, trucking companies, and other affiliate businesses. In 2012, Keith was named as the consulting economist to the National Private Truck Council, NPTC, and in 2013, ACT became one of the 50 firms participating in the Blue Chip Economic Indicators, winning the Lawrence Klein Award for Forecasting and Accuracy in 2019. So again, Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Really, the format of today's is going to be a conversation. We have David Cofield from IFTA as well. David will help sort of moderate our conversation as we go. And again, as we do, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll compile those and make sure we get to as many as possible throughout our hour together. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to David. David, welcome.
Thanks, Carolyn. I hope everyone can see me. I've had some technical difficulties here getting into Zoom. I'm sure that's not been a problem with anybody else over the past few years, so I appreciate your patience. But thank you for joining us today. Thank you to PLM for your 25 years of support for IFTA. I got to start with saying that, Don. We couldn't do this, couldn't do our organization. Our industry wouldn't move without you. So thanks for everything that you do. Ken, thanks for being here as well. Everything that's going on at ACT, we're looking forward to learning more about that. And appreciate you being here and your time today. I know it's valuable, and I know our members appreciate it. So thanks, and first and foremost, thank you both for your time today. I'll just start it off by just some introduction or just some questions just to kick it off. Ken, you just want to introduce yourself, maybe give us a background on your relationship with, your company and then the economics of what we're facing today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, David, and thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks for the opportunity to join Don on the panel today. ACT Research is a boutique forecasting shop that is focused almost exclusively in the North American market and focused on highway transportation and then commercial vehicle production. As I think Carolyn said, I've been doing this since 1991. So maybe even a little longer than Don has been doing his job at PLM. I think one of the reasons ACT research exists is because this is a very peaky industry or a very dynamic industry. So you can be especially if you're looking at commercial vehicle production, peaks to troughs run 50 to 60% over the course of a given cycle. And if we were selling toothpaste, you got 1% more people, you probably need 1% more toothpaste. In this business. When truckers make money, they buy a lot of equipment. They hate to pay taxes, so that's kind of foundational. If you operating costs don't change that much whether you're at the top of the cycle or the bottom of the cycle. So when you're at the top of the cycle, you spend a lot of free cash, and you don't want to give that money to Uncle Sam. So you buy equipment, and then at the bottom of the cycle, where we are right now, you end up in a situation where and we'll talk about this later, but where the supply chain starts shedding capacity, and then when everybody wants trucks, then they can't get them. Or I should say, or reefer van trailers. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it back to you, David.
Thanks, Ken. And those are great comments. I don't know anybody likes paying taxes. If you do, send them our way, and I know the government's looking for them. So, Don, I'll pass it over to you. Just opening statements, kind of on the topic here at hand. I know you've been plugged into this for longer than 6 months, right? This has been an ongoing issue. I think we saw it coming down the pipeline last time we spoke, or a couple times we spoke over the past couple of years, or last year or so. So, Don, I'll kick it over to you just for some opening thoughts.
Sure. Thanks a lot, David. Number one, I just want to say that it's really great to have Ken on this particular webinar. Ken's pretty modest. This is the go-to organization that many of us in the transportation world go to look at the research that he comes up with. Helps us to make decisions on what we're doing. So it's a really great opportunity for any one of you to connect with him. I can't express how much. So. Kicking it off today, I'm not here to make you feel comfortable, okay? Tariffs should disturb you. It disturbs me. I recently was in Washington, D.C. With IFTA on the Washington Policy Conference that they had last week. We spoke to economists, political strategists, members of Congress, and this is what they're talking about, is tariffs. To be clear, a tariff is a tax, and it is inflationary. So I'm going to dive just a little bit into, as far as my opening statement is, kind of what I'm feeling what the administration is looking at. So, and what Trump is actually, or the administration is doing. So, in April 2nd of 2025, of course, we know that President Trump declared a national emergency to tackle the trade deficit and invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And so obviously this was, imposed 10% universally, the reciprocal tariffs on 57 countries, starting on April the 5th. He called it Liberation Day. Of course, it was legally challenged, and the Court of the International Trade ruled that it was unauthorized on May 28th. The administration appealed it, and they got a stay that was granted through the till it gets in the appeals court. That is currently, they had some arguments on Monday, and we expect probably something within the next 2 months, next month or in August to get some type of ruling. So is this the only thing that the administration could actually do? No, actually it's not. So I want to kind of go over some other levers that the administration could potentially pull. Originally, all this stuff that we're talking about, really Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. This was during the Great Depression. They put tariffs on 20,000 imported goods, triggered retaliatory tariffs, and it was widely seen by industry as economically harmful. So how is Trump administration could use the Smoot-Hawley Act today? It really is looking at protecting U.S. industry. Number two, it's political messaging. He said America first, okay? And this is what he's going for. He's pushing for tariffs that rules that actually he can get through without congressional approval. So two of those I'm going to cover today is the Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, and that is for retaliation against unfair trade practices. And then Section 232, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. I know it's a little geeky, but we got to get through this to really understand and for the questions. So 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 really doesn't need to go through congressional approval. This actually goes through the United States Trade Representative. And what they do is, excuse me, how it was used in the past. This is the ruling that President Trump used in 2018 to impose over $300 billion in tariffs on Chinese goods. He was worried about forced technology transfers and then IP theft. So during the campaign, he campaigned on this. He said, raise tariffs on Chinese EVs and solar panels, target companies relocate to inside the country, and then justify cross-border import duties as retaliatory economic coercion. The challenge with this particular rule is that it does have a process. So you have to have initiation of investigation, you have to have a public comment period, finding issues, negotiate options, presidential authority, then a tariff announcement. So Section 232, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, which really is really going for imposing tariffs that threaten national security. And he's used this terminology before. So the authority doesn't need the congressional approval again. The trigger begins from the Department of Commerce this time. So it's a different agency. The scope is really on national security and economic impacts on domestic industries to defense. And it's a very wide-ranging scope there for it. So the timeline for that would be 270 days to complete an investigation, and then President would have 90 days to decide on the action. So we've seen this particular act done on June 3rd of this year to raise aluminum tariffs from 25 to 50%, citing national security. What the administration is doing is they have a stacking strategy. So they've got, so we'll just take China, for instance. So they have multiple tariffs. So you have a base tariff, you have a 10% Emerging Economic Act tariff, you got a 20% fentanyl tariff, then you got a 301 duties, totaling to 145, 170% that we've seen. So that Economic Emergency Act is in limbo right now, and we'll see that happen. But so the administration is really going to be leaning on the 232 and the 301. So we're really waiting for that final court decision. So that may go away, but again, why is he doing this so quickly? Okay, and the thought is that he understands that the midterm will come up, and most likely, history has said, more chances are not that the House is going to flip Democrat. And if that happens, then he'll be in gridlock. So that's a big challenge. If you're wanting to keep up to date on tariffs, PLM's got a tariff update. We've got all of the stats on there, the most recent news on there, so you can keep up to date on that. But just one of the recent ones that I published 2 days ago was they've reported raising $88 billion in tariff revenue during the first 2 months. So for if you look at the period last year from January to today, year over year, 80% more. If they continue this path, they can collect in 10 years $2 trillion, and that would go potentially to the dead. I don't know how sacred that would be because we know how things work in Washington, D.C. So that's my opening statement. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Don. Those are great insights, a great starting point for that conversation. Lots to dive in there. I mean, we could probably spend an entire afternoon just on 301. Just from my background, it might take months to kind of dive into that. But Ken, do you have any thoughts? I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'd like your professional opinion, just how even the talk of tariffs, how that affects the economic outlook and your research there at ACT.
Yeah, uncertainty is a killer of investment. So just with that in mind, but at a high level, at the beginning of the year, the debate amongst our economics team, and I think we've got 4 economists on staff with 8 degrees between them. So reasonably sharp group of fellows. Our GDP forecast back in February, or I should say, the debate was: is it going to be 2% or is it going to be 2.5% for 2025? Today the debate is: should it be 1% or 1.5%? So we've taken about 100 basis points out of our GDP forecast because, as Don said, tariffs are inflationary. We expect interest rates to be higher, so that's pulled down our freight expectations. We were thinking that freight was going to grow at about a 2.7% rate in 2025. We've marked that down to 1.5%. Next year we were thinking freight was going to grow about 2.2%. We've marked that down to 0.7%. These things have consequences, and I think going back to Don's comments, what we just saw last week as an example. So if we start on June 3rd, we had 25% steel and aluminum tariffs. On June 4th, those steel and aluminum tariffs had gone up to 50%. And then, as Don said, the IEEPA tariff was put back into play. So another 20%. So, in the course of on fentanyl risky countries. So, in the matter of just a few days, you had a tripling of effectively of the steel and aluminum tariffs, given that we get so much steel from Mexico and so much aluminum from Canada. And then just, for context, and I don't think a lot of people, appreciate, what's been going on, or, just, kind of the scale of tariffs. And last year, the average tariff in the United States was 2.5%. Per Fitch, if the president installs all, gets all his tariffs installed, we are going to be up to 22%, which is for tariffs, which is higher than Smoot-Hawley, which got to 20%. So we have to go all the way back to 2010 to find to higher tariffs. So yeah, so if anybody was looking for something to brighten their day, as Don suggested, this is probably the wrong webinar to be attending.
True. Definitely understand. And that's not why we're here. We're not here to brighten people's day. We're here to give people the facts. And so, Don, again, maybe going back to you, Don, just real quick, how does this relate, right? I mean, economics, we all understand, right? It starts from the top, whether that's at the executive level or the USTR level. But from refrigerated trailers, right? If we get back down to the brass tacks of where the tariffs are, doesn't matter what industry you're in, how that affects the brass tacks of where we're at, whether it's a reefer trailer on the manufacturer side or on down to our members and the distributor, right? There's a mix between there. There's some time between when it's made and when it gets to our facility. Maybe just kind of walk us through that timeline. I know we've had some conversations in the past of just trucks being delayed in processing as it was, past COVID, just with the supply chain of building trailers, how that might affect this as far as we look at any impacts related to that.
That's actually a great question, and we do have some recent memory of COVID and the challenges that presented to manufacturing, to delays in manufacturing, and what they were able to produce out of their particular factories. But think about this, okay? I mean, you heard all the numbers, 25, 40, 50%, tariffs on like steel and aluminum. Well, 80% of a refrigerated trailer is what? Steel and aluminum, okay? So this actually impacts costing on a daily basis on a refrigerated trailer. And those costs are passed down. So we're seeing, the manufacturer will give us a call and say, hey, these are increases. This is your increase right now. And then the next day, some other announcement's made, hey, here's your increases. So there's a bouncing ball here, and it's very difficult to really lay down a particular a number for their customers. And so, they've been forced to rethink their current sourcing strategies. They're trying to source internally. But, I think Ken will agree that when there's a 25% tax on, if the going rate for aluminum is a certain number, from the outside were coming in, internally we raised the number to that number also. So it really does impact no matter where you're getting it from. And so as these companies try, and I'll just give another example of one of the manufacturers, they source all their stuff from outside the country. It's brought in, and the manufacturer assembles it in the U.S. and then puts a VIN plate on there from the U.S. and then they sell that refrigerated trailer. The challenge is now, since you source outside, all of that is under heavy tariffs or heavy taxes, if you say, and now they're looking to source in Canada because they have a facility in Canada. But now there's some kind of conversation of what VIN plate goes on there, so it gets pretty complex. You have to put two VIN plates on there, or whatever that might be. So those are some of the challenges: stability in pricing, things changing daily. And the reason why I bring that up, and David, to your comment, really, it's not as simple as I get a price from a trailer manufacturer, and that's the number I'm going to pay. The trailer manufacturers will price out at current pricing, okay, and usually that's fine for most stable environments where they can understand what their pricing is. If there's a little fluctuation, they can take that. So they price out that trailer at the current price. Then it takes maybe a couple of months for that build date for you to get in line, for you to be able to do that. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months, whatever the number is, okay? But the unit's really not actually priced out until all the components are sourced and all the materials are sourced at the factory, which is probably 2 weeks before they actually build. And then now comes your real price. So customers are distributors are in conflict on pricing and doing their planning. And I just say another thing about maintenance and repair. All this is going to apply to aftermarket parts, all the things that you're trying to do for the refrigerated trailer. They are going to become more expensive. You're not going to be able to rely on, what the inventory number is this year for a particular part. That could change on you to maintain your current refrigerated trailers, or if you have to repair a refrigerated trailer, that could definitely do it. So there's, again, that instability in the marketplace because this stuff is, probably while we're talking, there's probably another news cycle about tariffs that's going on.
Probably so.
Yeah.
And Don, knowing the complexity again and uncertainty around the conversation, how would a company that's looking, a food service distributor company, a member of ours at IFTA, look at this situation as opposed to having leased vehicles or owning those vehicles? Whether we're planning for 5 years or 10 years down the road,
Yeah,
there's a lot of questions there, but kind of unpack the lease versus ownership in this tariff-driven economy for us.
Sure, absolutely. So part of this is really, in a tariff-driven economy, owning. We're talking to customers, and what they're telling us is they're saying, "Hey, I need risk reduction. I can't live in this volatile world. I need flexibility in what I'm currently doing." And they're really looking for residual value protection on that. So I'm going to take residual value. So avoid overpaying for a depreciating asset. Steel and aluminum are up high right now. They're inflated. These resale values could potentially crash on your current pricing because if this stuff goes away in 2 years or 1 year or whatever it might be, and then everything stabilizes and we get to a good point, they're going to build that particular trailer a lot less expensive. And so you're going to be held. So if you do a trade-in value, you might not get your number. You may be in a negative position when you try to get your new equipment. So what leasing does, and that's one of the things we're talking about, is that it shifts that risk to the lessor, protecting you from overpaying or losing money on a resale later on. So as an example, reefer components, compressors, insulation, electronics, the metals that go into it, or if all repealed and resale values could plunge, a lease avoids that trap to be able to do that. And if you're traditionally ownership, that's great, but in stressful economic times, you probably need to be looking at more financial tools in your toolbox. And so it's good to at least have a conversation, look at these things. The other thing was a capital conservation. Okay, so on a high high inflationary environment like we're in an unpredictable environment, owning a refrigerated trailer really ties up large capital from you. Leasing allows you to conserve those credit lines, those cash, and now you can just make a payment. Okay, so you don't have to put the big down payment on or pay for it right away. You can start just making payments on it, or just the leasing payments, and then that capital can be redirected to other strategic investments. So driver retention, building infrastructure and facility, or even in the local news today, which was UNFI and the cyber attack. What are you doing about cyber security and stuff like that? So
Yeah.
those are you would definitely look at. And then I will also just mention simplify your budgeting, predictable cost. I know what my number is. I can move forward there. The real challenge is a refrigerated trailer cost has been up 40% over the last 20, 25 years. And tariffs really haven't even hit us yet.
Wow. That's something to keep note of, Don. And on that same topic, as far as de-risk, budgets, staying within the budget, doing more with less, can, and again, this goes to the bottom line, right? We can talk about future spending, but current spending, freight rates, the market spend, where's the market at now based on spot rates versus contracts, and where do you see kind of that fluctuation being, and can our members kind of focus on that for maybe a de-risk position?
Yeah, sure. So I think the good news is, we're I think entering our 11th quarter of downturn. Especially in the for hire market, and certainly in vehicle demand. So I think with confidence we can say that we're closer to the end than we are at the beginning. Though, typically downturns last kind of 6 or 7 quarters. So we're already well into overtime in this downturn. And I think one of the challenges, talking about tariffs, really the corrosive effect on demand on a go forward basis. And I think one of the things that's happened is I think Don has at least hinted at this, which is everybody saw tariffs coming in as soon as Donald Trump got elected, and some people probably before Donald Trump got elected knew Donald Trump was getting elected. So we saw a surge in imports in the fourth quarter and the first quarter. We've seen kind of consumer goods spending ripping a little bit ahead of tariffs. So consumers that are in the know are buying stuff off the shelves today if they can afford to do so, because they know the price is going up, and the price is going to go up in the second half of the year. So inflation is quiescent at this point. But it won't be for long. And yeah, as a result of manufacturers and businesses pulling demand forward, consumers and businesses pulling sales forward, we're looking at a freight air pocket, certainly to be hitting probably after the China tariff deadline, which is August 8th or 9th. One of the things that we do in our shop is we track the 12 publicly traded truckload carriers. So the household names, you guys would know. So Knight and Werner and Schneider and JB Hunt, Martin Transportation, I guess is the one kind of sole reefer only carrier. And so we take the balance sheets of these guys, we aggregate the data, and in the first quarter we had the worst quarter for carrier profitability since the first quarter of 2010. And if we look over the past 4 or 5 quarters, we have to really go back to 2009 and kind of and the first quarter of 2010 to find a worse period for carrier profitability. And that's with lower corporate tax rates today than compared to back then. Whenever you're having to go back to the global financial crisis to make a worst since comparison, you've got a real problem on your hands. Spot rates are currently tracking up around 3% on a year-over-year basis, but CPI is tracking at about 2.5%. So as we see things, carrier profitability had no traction in the second quarter. We just talked about the inbound air pocket in the third into the fourth quarter. So we don't see where there's going to be a lot of traction in spot rates, really between now and until the very end of the year. And as a rule of thumb, contract rates lag spot rates by 5 months at half the rate. So every 2 percentage points of spot rate movement is going to give you 1 percentage point change in contract as a rule of thumb. So yeah, it's rough out there right now.
Rough, dynamic, always changing. Sounds like, bad examples are not good examples, but we'll take what we have. So,
Yeah.
kind of in the next part of that question, Ken, and sticking with you on that, and you mentioned it a little bit, but the difference on how our members and again private fleets, kind of hedge against for hire businesses, and kind of elaborate a little bit on what folks can do on making sure their fleets are optimized to perform again against the risk here.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that has extended the freight cycle downturn was private fleet equipment acquisitions in 2023 and 2024 that took market share away from the for hire market. We think the change, the shift was about 5 percentage points. So if you go back to 2021, private fleets were looking to their private carriers to get, or to their for hire carriers to move freight, and their for hire carriers were like, sorry, we just do not have the capacity. And so I think a lot of CEOs ended up with egg on their face. In 2021, you'd pick up the Wall Street Journal, during earnings season, and one CEO after another was blaming their freight budgets for why they didn't meet their numbers, and so I think a lot of private fleet expansion was green lighted, and I think it was aided. I think the OEMs did a nice job. I should say the tractor OEMs did a very nice job of going to private fleets and saying, you guys keep your fleets, you guys keep your trucks 7 or 8 years. We've got this emissions regulation sitting out in 2027, and maybe you should be buying some additional trucks and getting your fleet positioning correct. So I think it was kind of two things. It was one, the green lighting by CEOs of the equipment acquisitions, and then also I think the tractor OEMs had a very good value proposition and a reason to pull demand forward, and that was really the basis of the drag in the market. I do think on a go forward basis, that we are into a period of capacity destruction right now in the for hire market. And we like to say, the cure for low prices is low prices. So as capacity comes out of the market, and certainly we still have kind of downward pressure on our the demand side of our forecast. But the good news is we've seen Class 8 retail sales fall below replacement levels in 2025 for the first time in 3 years. So we're finally actually starting to see a little bit of contraction in the Class 8 population, which is kind of one of those first steps to moving the cycle forward.
Thanks, Ken. And as you know, most of our members have great fleets and continue to build on those, continue to grow. So very important for our membership. So we appreciate that insight. Don, I'll kick it over to you. Just want to talk about, I know we touched on a little bit, but risk management here on just best ways for us to mitigate the tariff, right? I mean, we could probably spend an entire conversation just on that, but we'll kick it to you for that conversation here. And then maybe look at, after that, Ken, maybe hop in here for midterm, where we want to think, like midterm, where we want to go midterm, and then maybe long-term trajectory here.
Yeah, so that mitigation really, we've kind of fleshed that out a little bit on what our customers or customers coming to us are talking about, as far as, hey, here's my response. Sitting still is not a strategy. Well, I guess anything's a strategy, but you need to have an equipment cycle. You currently have an equipment cycle that you look at as a replacement cycle. and you don't want to create a bubble within your particular fleet. So um, getting those new trailers into your facility is probably important, but I would say mitigation. So if you're under the impression that says, hey, you know what, Don talked a little bit about, and the bubble could come at midterm. We just want to eke this out until the Democrats get into the House, and then probably start impeaching Donald Trump again and keeping him busy on other things. Then there's ways that the PLM can have that you can source midterm, like 2 year great equipment that will operate at your facility and to get you up to the 2 years that you need to. Or if you want to, if you want to do 4 years. So you have the in fleet, if you think the thing's going to work until all the way until his end of term, which he wouldn't be able to run after that. So maybe that gets you to where gets you to good as far as peace goes. And again, that residual risk hangs over you. Capital conservation to be able to make those investments in other things. And again, I said about UNFI, the cyber attack. I mean, that's brutal. We're all really concerned about that. And then to be able to really look at predictable numbers so that you can plan properly instead of working like, what's the number today? And then waiting for your product to be sourced or the components to be sourced, and told that, hey, you know what, it's another 6% on what you thought it was going to be at that point. So those would be some of the things I would look at as far as mitigation.
Perfect. Thanks, Don. That's super helpful. I know our members would appreciate that and are probably already looking at it. If not, feel free to reach out to Don and other folks in this area, because these changes are, again, from DC up here every week, right? There's something else going on, and we're continuing to see that this year and probably into next year. Ken, going back to you real quick, one of ACT's biggest claim to fame here is tracking new and used vehicle markets. I know our members are growing. I know that we're getting new and used vehicles across our platforms here and our companies. Where do you specifically see that those trends going for as far as the demand for reefer trailers? I've got an idea, but I'd love for you to share it for our members.
Yeah. So the short answer is I think you should, and no OEM has paid me to say this. I think you everybody should be looking at their reefer fleets pretty hard right now, and so now I'll back into to the reasons why I say that. So 2023, even into early 2024, reefer vans were really the kind of the most resilient part of the trailer market. Currently. Reefer is the weakest U.S. trailer market segment, and just kind of for some high level numbers, 22 and 2023, builds for reefer vans were kind of 44,000 units a year. The year to date order trend this year is at 31,000. The long-term backlog to build ratio, so orders get placed, they get put in backlog, and then they get built out. The long-term average is about 6.7 months. Currently that backlog to build ratio is 4.4 months on a sharply lower build rate. So, a year ago in April, the industry was building 165 units a day. This April, they were building, 108 units per day. And I think kind of I just told you nobody wants reefer trailers, and it's really bad. Replacement levels currently in the marketplace, we think reefer van replacements around 36,000 units a year right now, rising to about 42,000 units per year by the end of the current 5 year forecast cycle. So 36,000 unit replacement, and our forecast is 28,000 units. So we're starting to take capacity out of the market, and when you're thinking about especially all the trailers you all bought back in 2015, really through 2019, as you had the Food Safety and Modernization Act, hit. There was a lot of trailers purchased in kind of the second half of the teens, and as a result, those trailers are getting pretty old today. So, our long-term average fleet age in reefer is right at 6 years. Currently, we're looking at an average age of 6.4, and that's rising to about 6.7 years in the next couple of years. And I think, as a part of the overall discussion of the health of the industry, we have seen, or we are currently seeing capacity come out of the market. We don't get public announcements from the trailer manufacturers like we do with the truck and tractor manufacturers. But all OEMs are taking labor out of their markets. Suppliers are taking capacity out of their markets. I was just on a call with a van trailer manufacturer yesterday. With the tariffs currently, they're expecting the price of their trailers to go up by about 10%, to Don's comments earlier. So what's going to happen here is, the fleet is old, it's getting older, and we're under providing the fleet right now. And at the same time, the industry is getting rid of capacity. So when the market does turn, it's going to turn in a hurry. And those backlogs, you remember back in the days of 2021, 2022, when you wanted to get a trailer, and it's like, oh, this is good. This is going to be 12 months before you get a trailer. Maybe it's not that extreme, because I doubt we're going to pump, $2 trillion of stimulus into the economy, anytime soon. But it is going to turn, and when it does turn, because the fleet is so old, and Don can, I think, read you chapter and verse of, what happens to old reefer trailers, or you don't need me to tell you what happens to old reefer trailers, because you guys, live this every day. But there will come a point, maybe it's not 12 months from now, maybe it's 5 quarters or 6 quarters, but there will come a point in the fairly near term where the reefer van OEMs will no longer be coming to you with a hat in hand and saying please order some trailers.
Take it.
They will be saying, if you want trailers, get in line.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm no economist, but it's pretty simple, right? We're building less, or the manufacturers are building less trailers. The cost is going up, and the demand's going up as well, right? So those are just some simple supply and demand economics that may or may not match up, and looks like they don't match up. We'll see where that goes, and hopefully the market works itself out. I know our members are dynamic and flexible, right there to kind of take where we can get. Don, do you want to? We've talked about this again, just a little bit on risk mitigation. I mean, our members, Don, you know them best. You've been here longer than I have, as far as an elite supporter of IFTA for 25 years, but we're looking at midterm solutions, short-term, midterm solutions. Maybe that's 3 years, maybe that's 6 years. I mean, you just mentioned the life of a reefer trailer was 6 years. That's news to me. Seems a little low. What can we do to kind of kick that number up a little bit?
Sure, I think Ken was really referring to the average age of
Got
a
it.
refrigerated trailer, and that is aging for a refrigerated trailer.
Understood.
Ken really capsulized the whole challenge, because when you extend out your refrigerated trailer's lifespan over your current life cycle that you're doing, you have risk of increased cold chain failure. So you have inconsistent temperature control, you've got some spoilage or some rejections that actually happen. And then you have maintenance costs that go up and repair costs that actually go up. So, you have and again, he says average 6. So some are new and then some are like 12 years old, maybe or more. And you have a compressor go down, you decide, hey, I'm going to sit, hold tight. I'm not going to move. I'm not disturbed enough to take any action. I'm just going to sit still at this point. Now you have a couple of compressors go. So you pump $5,000, $6,000 into a compressor on your refrigerated trailer. 2 years from now, a year from now, everything gets gravy again. You're like, hey, I can. Do I really want to sell that now? I got $6,000 tied up into it. So now I'm going to extend it out even more. Um, that in your fleet starts to create bubbles. I mean, your best opportunity is to have so many trailers coming into your fleet every year, and not just like buy. If I got 20 trailers, I buy them all at one time, and they all get old at one time, and they all cost more money at the same time. So those are the things you got to really look at, and then the trade value on if I'm going to purchase, when I go to sell it or when I go to trade it in, am I going to have to pay more money for it? So now I'm buying a trailer, let's say for $100,000, and I'm in a negative position, so I got to pay for $100,000 trailer. I got to pay 120. Don't know. So that's what you have to do. And of course, we're all, I mean, IFTA members, high brand customer perception. Okay. Your trailer and your driver is the one that your customer sees. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. That's who they see the most. They definitely see your salesperson, but that driver and that trailer is one that they're doing. So we're seeing companies that traditionally do ownership actually look at other financial instruments, and leasing is one of those. I implore you to at least look at it and see if that's something that would work in your fleet. And as far as you're going to do a midterm, even a midterm lease, like a 2-year, 4-year lease to get you past this period of time, could be the thing that really sets you up. You don't want to be the company. You make this mistake, okay? You overpay for this equipment. That could have years lasting effect on you, to your bottom line. And so that's why looking at different financial instruments like leasing can actually be a benefit to you.
Thanks, Don. All these are fantastic tidbits, and I wish our members could spend an all afternoon, or maybe they'll see at Solutions. Don, I know you'll be there, so we can have some of these conversations there. I know they happen there. So if any of our folks are listening, we hope you can join us at Solutions. This is my personal plug to join us here at IFTA Solutions in Columbus, Ohio, September 28th to the 30th. Hopping back over, Ken, let's just go. I know we've talked a lot about midterm. What about the short term? And Don mentioned a little bit. I know the price is one thing. How does technology fit into this? I know a lot of folks are using telematics. Telematics came online maybe the past 20 years. Ken, you may have some older telematics that you've seen in your career since the 90s. But just in the past, from my knowledge, past 10 years or so, telematics kind of shooting up. What are best practices there, whether it's telematics, TRUs, again, making sure, Don, the life cycle, right? These trucks, they may look good, but on the when you open up the hood or behind the bones, what's kind of there that folks can look out for?
Don, do you want this question because
Sure.
because I drive spreadsheets the trucks.
Sure. I was actually in a truck just a week ago, riding with some distributors. So, as life cycle goes up, things cost more. Your refrigerated trailer, when you look at it, and as you hold on to these assets for a longer period of times, will actually consume more fuel. So in the beginning, a refrigerated trailer will get 0.6 gallons per runtime hour. All right. Older trailers can double it or even triple it, depending on how long you're keeping that asset. So when you're looking at everything and you're looking at Ken's spreadsheet per se, when you're looking at that whole thing, you got to look at it from a total cost of ownership viewpoint, instead of looking at it like, here's the number in the box. Okay, this number, I'm not paying anything for this trailer, Don. Do you understand? It's paid for. It's 8, 9, 10 years old. It's paid for. But you have all these things. And so when you have budgets, I mean, think about getting your trailers all at one time. You have a fleet of 20 trailers. You're putting them out on the street, 65, 75, 85,000 miles go down the road, and now they all need tires. And this goes into next year. Did you budget for 20 times 8 tires on your trailer? Did you budget for that? You know, when they all have to be replaced at whatever, 400 or 500 bucks a clip. And so, you know, those are the things that you have to look out for. The members really need to look at. So, um, that's a big challenge in industry is how long do I keep that particular unit for, and what is the life cycle? That's why you keep hearing me say life cycle. You know, what is my plan, life cycle wise, and you know, which the right one for me, and that all is different for every distributor out there.
Yeah, super important, Don. It's really dynamic pricing, right? It's that truck's more than what that truck's value is. There's maintenance cost and making sure you're accounting for that whole life cycle of that truck is super important.
Yeah, and
Um,
let me just add this, David. You
yeah,
know,
sure.
when I ride on these on the trucks with distributors and stuff, so that trailer, let's say, leaves out at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it goes make its runs, comes back in the afternoon at 3 maybe. So that driver will pull that trailer over to the. It's been running all day long, and that driver pulls the trailer over to the dock. Then he puts the dolly legs down, sits there. He puts the tractor against the fence. He goes home. The tractor sits next to the fence. Some guy from operations comes out from the warehouse. He flips the unit on to pre-cool the unit and starts loading again. That trailer is the workhorse. It gets 120% utilized or more than anything else does. In more than your driver, more than your tractor. And so that's why it's really important, really, to look. And I think, Ken, you mentioned it as far as like in your telematics conversation, the best practices. What do I need to do? Do I pre-cool the trailer? Am I working in a correct operational mode? Am I going from cycle century, start stop, as we call it? Or am I having a continuous run where I'm burning more fuel, and it's running the whole time? What are your drivers doing? Telematics actually helps you to be able to look at eye in the sky kind of thing. Look at your matrix to be able to extend your life out, because the way a refrigerated trailer works is not necessarily on miles, because it's really tires and brakes on it on a trailer. It's really how many hours I got on that TRU, and it really depends on what I'm hauling in that realm. So I just wanted to add those couple of comments there.
Absolutely. Perfect. And our members, dynamic hauling, right? Some folks are different markets. Some folks are in hotter temperatures. Gas prices, diesel prices, fluctuate across the country. So having this holistic approach to your unit, to your fleet, and to your outlook for the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, super important. Ken, I appreciate your insight here on how folks, especially food service distributors, we're talking about our members here, how can we stay competitive during this tariff environment? I know we've touched on a lot of it. I'll kind of end here, and then maybe we can pop over a few last questions before we hit the 3 o'clock hour.
Yeah, I think Don said the letters TCO. It's paying attention to the bottom line. During hard times. Excuse me, making good decisions, and I, to second, even though I don't operate reefer equipment, seconding the comment on hours. The last 2 summers have been the hottest summers on record in the United States. I'm guessing as the reefer units were being operated, they were being used more heavily the last couple years. So staying on top of costs, keeping your head down and grinding is about all you can do, in this kind of market environment.
Perfect. I think that's spot on. And our members will take these tidbits from this conversation. I know they've been putting them into practice already. Maybe one last question, and maybe I'll kick it over to Carolyn for the final thought. We've heard a lot about tariffs. We've heard a lot about President Trump. What are you guys hearing on driver supply? Couple things, right? Truck driver supply has been a hot topic for as long as I've been around, both on the Hill and here in the industry. What are we seeing that's new? I know there's some new things at DOT that relate to driver proficiency as for the English language. You guys hear anything on that? See anything on that as far as on the ground?
So I guess I'll jump in here. I think you know, to get a CDL in the United States, English proficiency has been a requirement since CDLs have been around. So you know, I think, you know, to some extent the announcement that English proficiency is going to be um, you know, front and center is probably you know, I think at least for some you know, some of the truckload fleets I talk to is more wishful thinking, but I do believe you know, while English proficiency was probably just a soundbite you know, for the president, I do think you know, the driver pools have been augmented largely by immigrants the, you know, the last few years, and you know, there's been a very chilling effect on immigration. You know, we run a for hire truckload survey, and you know, for the last 33 months, one of the questions we ask in the survey is it hard to find drivers? And for the last 33 months, the answer has been no. It isn't hard to find drivers. So though I will say in the, you know, kind of the last four up cycles for carrier profitability, you know, driver shortage has been a component. You know, you have that inflection in the economy, and it takes time to get the advertising out, reopen the driver schools, and get everything everything, you know, going. Kind of like the manufacturers find the employees, start making more widgets to keep the industry going down. So you know, currently not too hard to find drivers. You know, I think it is a component you know, for the for hire market. You know, you know, that we like to say the louder you know, the trucking companies are complaining about drivers, the more money they're going to make. So that's human nature in a nutshell. So you know, Don, I'll just turn it over to you.
No, I think you're spot on. You know, definitely ATA and a lot of the associations out there in the trucking world are for it. Again, this is pretty much, I think. I mean, you do hear stories. I see our little article snippets like, hey, they spoke, you know, Iraqi, and nobody understood them. They took the test in Iraq. I don't know, you know. So I always hear those phantom conversations. So I would
Yeah.
totally. Mm-hmm.
Well, super. I just want to say, you know, thank you to all three of you, Don and Ken and David. We appreciate this great conversation. It's always been insightful. I'll be like David and make a little bit of a plug for our solution show at the end of September. Don and his team at PLM will be there. They'll be presenting some additional topics, but you know, we have a lot of different sessions there around trailers, transportation, drivers, talent, all of that. So love for you to join us at Solutions, as we'll be able to see Don there. I'll go ahead and put up on our screen just some information. If you would like to reach out to Don or to Ken, they'll both be available. So I'll leave this here for anyone who's looking to reach out to both of you. We appreciate your insights today on this really important topic, and I'll leave this up for the remainder of our time together. So if anyone's interested in reaching out to you all directly, they can do so.
Perfect.
Great.
And Carolyn, I see some attendees here that are in the room that'll be at Solutions that I know. So those that have joined that I do know, thanks for being here. I won't call you out individually, but I'll talk to you soon. And again, thanks for being a supporter of IFTA, for supporting the food service distribution industry. Our allied members, our allied partners, our elite sponsors like PLM. This industry and would not move, and we would not have food without you guys. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all. I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Ken.
All right.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See you.